Hey, this is how you should train at the gym to build muscle. We are going to go over a number of concepts which you need to learn in order to fully understand how to build muscle effectively. The first is volume. Volume is how much training you actually do. It is your way of measuring the total amount of work that you are doing in the gym. If you do one set for a single muscle in a given week, your volume for that muscle is going to be one set. Volume is measured in sets. A one set is basically you taking a single muscle close to or to failure. Failure means you do a certain number of repetitions for a given exercise to train a specific muscle such that you are not able to do another repetition with good form any longer. If you do that, that is one set. Now, the ideal number of sets that you should do in a given week is between 10 to 20. The sets may be less than 10 or more than 20, depending on whether you're specializing a single muscle or not, or whether you're trying to gain weight or you're trying to lose weight. But that is a different discussion. So, this is volume. The second thing is intensity. Intensity basically measures how hard you are pushing on each set. For example, we measure intensity using something called RIR, which is reps in reserve. For example, say you are doing the bench press and you put on 60 kgs on the bench press and you are able to do 12 reps. You are not able to do 13 reps no matter how hard you try. Now, if you actually do 10 reps while you are able to do 12, meaning you could have done 2 more reps. That means your RIR is going to be 2. Your RIR should be somewhere between 0 and 3 to effectively build muscle. So that is intensity. Ideally, your intensity should be varied by your actual volume. If you have a very high training volume, your intensity should be on average lower, closer to 3 or 2. But if your volume is lower, closer to 10 sets per muscle group per week, for example, then your intensity should be closer to either 0 or 1. Now, volume and intensity are the major factors when it comes to training. Another thing which is very important, which most often people forget to implement in their training, is progressive overload. When you go to the gym, you might see people for months and maybe even years moving the same amount of weight around, doing the same exercises for the same number of reps. And that is not how you build muscle, because if you do a certain weight for a certain volume at a specific intensity, over time your body is going to adapt to that specific intensity. And there will come a point where that amount of training is no longer going to provide the required amount of stimulus to your body such that it can actually grow. That is why you need to progressively overload while training. I'll give you an example. If you can do the bench press for 60 kgs for 12 reps max at the start of your training program, what you should do is every week try to add another rep or a bit more weight to that exercise. If you did 60 kgs on the first week, the next week try to make it 61 kgs or 62 kgs. If you are unable to add weight, you can add reps. Instead of doing the same 12 reps every week again and again, make it 13 and then 14 and then 15. Keep increasing the reps until now, once the reps have been increased to a specific amount, it could be 20, 25. Once the reps are starting to increase a lot, you can then start to increase the weight. You could take it from 60 to 65. What this will do is, since you are increasing the weight, the number of reps that you are able to do is also going to decrease. Now you can repeat this process and slowly and incrementally increase the weight that you are using, and in this way you will actually get stronger and build more muscle. So volume, intensity, and progressive overload are the major factors when it comes to training in the gym. Now another thing which is mostly overlooked is training technique. This can make a very big difference in the outcomes that you see. You could be training hard, you could be doing the right amount of volume, you could be progressing, but you may not see the results that you're seeing in terms of your own physique because you might be using the wrong muscles to do a certain exercise. For example, say you're doing the bench press. Now, the purpose of the bench press, if your goal is to build a bigger chest, if that is your purpose, if you're trying to build a bigger chest, then you need to do the exercise such that your chest is being used the most. If you're bench pressing with a technique which is putting more pressure on your triceps and your shoulders than your chest, then your chest is never going to grow no matter how hard you train, no matter how much volume you add, and no matter how more intensity you add. That is why you need to train in such a way that you are actually targeting the muscle that you are supposed to be training. Another thing when it comes to training is the tempo of your reps. When I say tempo, this is talking mostly about the eccentric or the lowering part of any lift. Say you're doing the bench press, you have moved the weight up and now you're bringing it back down. The back the bringing the weight down part of that lift is the eccentric. What you want to do is make sure to control that part. If you are swinging the weight up and down, you are going to increase your chances of injury and you're actually going to make your technique worse by transferring the tension to different muscles such as your shoulders and your triceps. And another advantage to having good technique is you can actually use less weight and make the exercise even safer. For example, if you can do 60 kgs while bringing the weight down fairly quickly, you will be able to do much less weight if you actually bring the weight down very slowly and while controlling it and using a large range of motion. What this will do is since you are using less weight, you are in less risk of getting yourself injured. So these are the main things that are going to impact your muscle growth when you're training. Another thing which is fairly obvious, and that is your exercise selection. You should be choosing an exercise such that it actually targets the muscle that you're trying to train. If you are doing an exercise which trains the muscles which you think which which trains the muscle which it's not supposed to be training, but you think it trains that muscle, then you're not actually training the muscle that you think you're training. If you have a really high incline, for example, while doing a bench press, most of the tension is going to be on your shoulders since you're not lying down, mostly lying down. So you need to pick an exercise which targets the muscle which you are trying to train. So if you keep these principles in mind, the training aspect of the muscle building process is going to be efficient and effective.